Ladies and gentlemen.
All right, is everybody able to hear me? A little bit closer. Okay. I knew I'd be the one who has the issue with being quiet. All right, thank you all so much for coming today on this Trans Day of Visibility. I am so excited to see so many people here in attendance, as well as people who are on the Zoom chat. So for just a brief overview, my name is Soren Ruppelius, he, him pronouns. I'm one of the co-chairs of the event today. In a moment, I will have everybody here introduce themselves. We're going to be doing some questions up here with our wonderful moderator, and then we're going to be turning it into small groups to have some group discussions as well as Q&A. And I also wanted to mention we have somebody visiting here who would like to give a few words. Russ Huxtable, correct? Yep.
This is good. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Russ Huxtable. I'm the state senator here in the 6th district, and I really welcome you all into not just this public library, but into our communities, into our hearts. We know that on this Transgender Day, we recognize the discrimination and the bigotry that your community has faced, and really I'm here to say welcome to this community, welcome to our community, and thank you for being who you are, exactly the way you are. So thank you very much. I really don't have much else to say, but really my heart's with you, and I am an advocate and an ally. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate you being here, and everybody else as well. It's wonderful to have these community chats to bring us all together and have an opportunity to share our experiences, ask questions, and build community through that. So I will turn it to our moderator, and we'll go through the line as we do our introductions, and then we will get into questions.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Soren. My name is Hannah Cicchini. I'm a reporter and an anchor with 47 ABC. We're based out of Salisbury, so thanks for welcoming a Marylander here into beautiful Lewes, Delaware. Really excited to be here today to kind of hear from our panelists who are going to tell us a little bit more about themselves and kind of what it means to them to be trans, non-binary, and kind of how we can all relate to each other in that sense. So myself, I'm non-binary. I use they, them pronouns. Just if I may share a bit about myself, I personally have found that the LGBTQIA plus community here on Delmarva is really vibrant and beautiful and just really tends to welcome people with open arms. And that's a really beautiful thing because I've lived in a couple different places and the community is not always as tight knit as I find it is here on Delmarva. So as Soren mentioned, we're going to have some questions that we're going to go through to kind of hear about everyone's experiences. But before we get into the questions, I think we should go down the line, kind of introduce ourselves. So if you wouldn't mind, just tell us your name, where do you come from, and how do you identify?
That's yours.
Okay,
that's yours.
I'll keep it then.
Is this one working? Okay. My name's Randi Johnson. I use she, her pronouns. Retired 4.5 years ago, came here, met my partner, Terry. Quick history, always knew I was a woman inside from elementary school. Fear, guilt, shame, kind of buried it. I mean, I'm 67 years old. We're talking a long time ago. So it stayed hidden, buried. Halloween was a great time to come out. No one ever questioned, But after, and so I accepted Christ, got into a fundamentalist orthodoxy for most of my life. Really kept that guilt and shame going really strong. When my wife passed away, God hit me over the head, all sorts of rethinking my spirituality, but God took away my guilt and shame, not necessarily the fear, but the guilt and shame through a labyrinth walk. And later, after being involved with trans groups, I knew I had to transition, and that happened at 60. So, I wanted to transition into this young thing and transitioned into an old woman. Fortunately, my transition isn't like many of my friends. I had support from my church that walked with me through transition, support from my neighbors, and support at work. I was working with the federal government, been part of the Forest Service most of my career. When I transitioned, I was part of a research agency. And was fully supported there. But when that agency was moved to the Midwest, I, like so many other, 3/4 of the group, said, no, not for me. And I moved here. And it's great to be here.
And my name is Soren Ruppelius, he, him pronouns. I'll share a little bit more about myself. I am a queer and trans man. I originally grew up in Eastern Washington State. Ended up going all over the world for graduate school, as well as I worked for a time with the DoD in the military. I'm really proud of some of the work I got to do overseas with families where active duty military members were trans, or families who had trans kids and were stationed overseas. So trying to get people access to resources. And that's something I've been able to continue as I've moved to Delaware only recently, and trying to work with some of the groups up here, such as Sussex Pride. So that's kind of, yeah, a little bit about my story.
Hello all, I am Cathy Rion Starr, they, them pronouns. I live in Milton with my partner and my 7 and 11-year-old kids who may be on the Zoom. Hello. And my job is with Side with Love, which is the national justice and organizing project of the Unitarian Universalist Association, where I get to work on all sorts of issues. The shirt I'm wearing today is our Everybody is Sacred. It says trans lives are sacred, abortion is a blessing, and something else. So that's what I have the privilege of doing in my job every day. I am a Unitarian Universalist minister affiliated with the congregation right here on Route 9 by Hopkins. We've got a nice crew here. Hey, y'all. I identify as genderqueer, trans sometimes fits, non-binary is fine, but there's so much space in the gender spectrum, and I have been really blessed to live into that space, as it has opened up more politically than when I was a kid. I'm also a proud member of the Working Families Party in Delaware. I'm a lover of beauty. I'm a lover of chocolate. I'm really sad that I don't have my hands in the dirt in the garden right now, and I'm also happy to be here.
Hello, my name is Jamie McKenna. Better? Hi, I'm Jamie McKenna. She, her pronouns. I'm a board member of Sussex Pride and one of the co-chairs of the event this evening. I grew up in the New York City area, just outside New York and New Jersey. I moved down here in about 2017 and came out as trans in 2019. It's really improved my life in pretty much every way imaginable, and the community here has been really supportive. And thank you all so much for being here.
Our panelists come from a lot of different places all around the country. So, being here in, again, the beautiful state of Delaware, I wanted to ask you all, what has your experience been like being trans, non-binary, living here in Delaware versus any other place that you've lived in the country? And we'll go the opposite direction. So, Jamie, if you want to begin.
So all of my experiences being a full-time out trans person are here in Delaware, but my experiences up in New York when I was kind of desperately trying to step out of the closet and live more and more true to myself were all very difficult. It was only when I got down here and found community around me that I was really able to sort of come out of my shell a little bit. And it's just gotten better since then. But I think there is something kind of special about the community and just Southern Delaware. I don't know what it is exactly, but there's a sense of camaraderie and purpose that I didn't find anywhere I was living previously. I don't know if I was looking hard enough or if it just wasn't there, but I only found it when I got here.
I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for 15, 17 years, and that was where I came out as queer, was around a ton of trans folks, and that really helped root me in my politics and community organizing and that kind of thing. But I wasn't out around my gender to myself at that point. Lived in a bunch of other places, that were somewhat queer friendly. And here, this is even maybe compared to the Bay Area, the most gays and lesbians of anywhere I have lived. And I absolutely delight in walking around my neighborhood and all of the lesbian couples who are around. This is the most trans and non-binary folks I have been in a room with since I moved to Delaware 3 years ago. So I experience a real distinction between gay and lesbians. I love y'all. You're awesome. I'm so glad there are so many of you here. And I miss a broader sense of queer and trans community. And I think part of that's about having kids. And that's a very full life. And we're just starting to connect parents, queer families out there through Sussex Pride to build more community around that.
I moved to Delaware after being overseas for about 4 years. I have to admit, I was a little bit anxious moving out here. On my previous visits, I mean, yeah, a little bit of culture shock coming back, a little bit. But being here, I'm pleasantly surprised at how queer and trans friendly it has been. I'll say some of the things that I do run into are issues accessing resources, especially healthcare, maybe some of those things there. But thankfully, most of the time, most days, I don't have to think too hard about these things, right? I can just live my life and feel pretty comfortable and pretty safe. And I'll also acknowledge that when I'm walking around in my day-to-day life, I look like every other white man. People don't generally see me as trans, maybe queer. They hear my voice and some of the ways I dress sometimes, and I'm definitely clocked as queer, but for the most part, I can pass as just any other white man on the street. So I know that those intersections do help me feeling comfortable in the state as well. And I can't speak to some of maybe the other experiences that other people might have. But for me, despite some of the culture shock, it's been a pleasant experience being here compared to some of the fears I had coming back to the US.
So I transitioned in the Washington, D.C. area. The more metropolitan areas tend to have more bus types. And I could always know I had support around me. Moving here, I wasn't sure what to expect. I knew the Rehoboth area was very queer friendly. I'm south of there. I go shopping west of there, and all of a sudden you get out of the metropolitan area. So when I'm in a more suburban metropolitan area up in Rehoboth, to some degree in the Bethany Beach area, I'm really comfortable because as much as I try, I get clocked. I mean, you know, I'm not small, petite. My voice isn't as, where I want it to be, but then I've gotten lazy too. So here has been a little more difficult when I get out of my comfort zone. But I have never been accosted. Somebody might have raised an eyebrow, but I have never had a problem. It's usually my internal clock just going, be careful. So I am happy to be here. I have support and life is good.
I can definitely relate to that feeling of that internal voice telling you, be careful in certain situations. And, as we've heard, it seems like for the most part, people in our community feel pretty safe in this area. But, also last year, the Salisbury PFLAG did a Delmarva LGBTQIA+ climate survey where they kind of asked how do people feel, existing here, being a part of the community. People cited a lot of issues with access to resources, whether it be healthcare, whether it be support in schools, whether it just be finding other people in the community who they can connect with. So, what has your collective experience been like trying to access those resources here on Delmarva, whether it be, it doesn't have to just be healthcare. It could be, education or just finding a social group to be in. And again, we'll go the opposite direction. So you can start.
Okay, I'm old enough that I'm not playing with education anymore, did all that. I will talk about healthcare. Being of this age, I need a lot more of it than I used to. For the most part, I find the medical profession welcoming, but not overly educated sometimes. I did have one surgeon I went to who was very rude, and I'm guess, this is one of these things, are they just always rude and mean, and or is it me being trans? So, there's one of those, and obviously I didn't go back to him. But for the most part, the medical profession tries. They're really poor on pronouns. I don't know if y'all have experienced that, but and that people have to understand, it might not sound like a big thing, but if you don't recognize me for who I am, it's going to be hard for us to communicate. It's going to be hard for us to work together because you don't recognize me for who I think I am. If you're a professional and you're trying to help somebody and they don't recognize your expertise, you're not going to get along. So pronouns kind of works that way. So when I get continually mispronounced in an ER or something, it doesn't do well for me. But overall, I've had no problem. I've actually got a good primary care person. But it's like anything else. You got to find the right people.